parts where God speaks louder. Those are the parts that we want to write them down and say, oh, that was good, and that means that God is impressing upon you something that He wants you to learn, He wants you to obey, or that He wants you to stop doing. So that's why it's important to follow an outline. And the blessing of friendship, this is the first message of this series of messages, because we need to understand that friendship is a blessing from God. It's a gift from God. Okay? Last Friday, we started in a way with this emphasis when we had a conference about relationships. Okay? Relationship that is important for us to know, because the only way that we can truly experience real friendship, best friendship, is if we know how to deal in our relationships, interpersonal relationships with other people, with other persons. Because, I mentioned on Friday, and because this question is key for us to understand. What is the key for a successful life? Because we all want to have a successful life, right? I'm pretty sure that that's the reason why we're here. That's the reason why we do what we do. We go to school, we go to college and finish a career or a business or work here, because we all want to be successful in life. But the key for success, sometimes we miss the real part of the key for success. And that's what Jesus gave us. He gave us the key for success. When they asked Him, the leaders, the spiritual leaders of his time, they asked Him, because they were confused with so many teachings. Like nowadays, there are so many churches, so many denominations, and one says one thing and another thing, and say, hey, I'm confused already. Who has the truth? So, spiritual leader conclusion say, Jesus, tell us, what is the most important commandment of God? Because you see, they argue about more than 600 commandments. Which one was the most important? Can you imagine trying to figure out from 600 options which one is the most important? So they would argue and argue and argue, and they never came up with the most important. And Jesus right away told them, look, he told them here. The most important command is this. Listen, people of Israel, the Lord our God, He is the only Lord. So now He's saying, look, what I'm going to tell you comes from the authority of the maximum authority. The Lord is Lord. Okay, so the most important, love the Lord your God. Love Him with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. Okay? So now He's telling us here, look, the most important commandment, if you want to be successful in life, has to do with your relationship with God. Okay? With your relationship with God. That's the way you have to begin, in your relationship with God. Okay? So now, if you obey that most important commandment, your relationship with God is the right relationship. Then the second most important command is this. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's obvious that we love ourselves. These two commands are the most important commands. So you see, He's even telling us in the rest of the passage that Jesus just summed the whole Bible in 2 commandments. And He's telling us, look, this is the key for a successful life. Relationships. Relationships. Your relationship with God, your relationship with your neighbor. And remember, neighbor means those that live around you, close to you. Okay? If you're married, beginning with your mate or your parents, your brothers and sisters, and then it goes around. People that are connected to your life. That's your neighbor. So He's telling us that's going to be the key for a successful life. Okay? Relationship. So now, what is friendship? Since we are focusing on friendship, there are the meaning of friendship is very rich. Okay? Very rich. So, for example, friendship, it's a relationship of mutual affection, a stronger form of
personal bond than association. Okay, that means that to have an acquaintance and to have a friend. Okay, because usually we have many acquaintances that we probably share time at work or friendship is more than that. Okay, it's a bond. Okay, it's a bond. It's not just superficial. And you know, the reason for this series of messages is because according to statistics, more and more we're losing the real meaning of friendship, and we are not really bonding in relationships. We're not bonding. We are very superficial in our relationships. Friendship involves the sharing of values such as love, loyalty, solidarity, unconditionality, sincerity, and commitment, and that is cultivated with frequent reciprocal treatment over time. So you see, it takes effort, it takes time, it takes sacrifice. It's a way of that we have to cultivate friendship. Okay, we need to cultivate friendship. Now, friendship is one of the most social values, because human beings are social and we need to share affections and feelings. See, that's the way we were made. That's why, I'm going to focus mostly next week, of course, part of the message today, that this is the way God made us, and friendship is so important that even God wants to be our friend. God. And God, we're going to look at the life of his best friend and his first friend he had, Abraham. And the Bible tells us that that's the way God mentioned Abraham. Abraham, my friend. Abraham, my friend. So you see the importance of friendship, that even it's very important for God, but sometimes we are losing that. Okay? And right here we can see that friendship is very important. Okay? What happened? One is missing. Okay. Now, friendship, if you notice the last one, friendship is personal and not impersonal. Okay, so this is what the studies are telling us, that we are becoming more impersonal in friendship. That means it's everything through the telephone, everything through the computer. Okay, we have so many friends, we communicate with friends, and yeah, you're my best friend, and this and that. But it's not real friendship. That's not the way that we truly make friendship and make bonds. Okay, and one young girl learned that by experience. Okay, she's a young girl that she has a blog. She exercises and she teaches in her blog about how to exercise, how to eat right, how to take care of your skin, all that. And she had thousands of friends following her. They call them my friends, and that's the way that they communicate, friend and friend, because she says, okay, we're friends, and we're gonna deal with among us like friends and friend. Okay, so she decided to create a T-shirt with a message about friendship and you're my friends and all that, and she put it on sale. Do you know how many she only sold? 4 out of thousands of friends that were supposed to buy her T-shirt to show that we are friends, and only she was able to sell 4. Because it's not real. It's not real. Okay? And we need to understand that it's not real, that we truly need to make real friends. Look, this philosopher says, living without friends is not living. Okay? Living without friends is not living. And he was the kind of philosopher that is known as Stoic, from the Stoic, because in philosophy, let's say it's very similar to religion or churches, that we have different denominations. Okay, had different denominations of experience happiness and to acquire wisdom, and by not caring for the material things of this world. And that's why this is what he wrote. Living without friends is not living. Okay? It's not living. So friendship must be taken care of and cultivated. We need to take care of friendship. We need to cultivate our friends. It is necessary to be always attentive to each other, to always be attentive, to be in contact, but in real contact, not just through a telephone or a computer, but real contact, human contact is what is needed the most. Otherwise, you see, without the will of really getting together and cultivating a relationship, that relationship is just going to get cold and it's going to end up getting lost. Okay? So that's why we are putting this emphasis on Friendship Day, so we can start maybe changing our patterns, our attitudes, our actions towards friendship, and we can do it more biblical, okay, than just according to the ways of society that are constantly changing, and sometimes they change not for the better but for the worst, like in this case with friendship. Okay, so who brought a friend this morning? Raise up your hand if you brought a friend. Raise up your hand if you have a friend here, okay? So if you brought a friend, I want you to come and get a gift here so you can give it to your friend, because that's a way of expressing that we're very happy that you brought a friend, and that's the way you and us, we express our love and appreciation for friends, all right? And you know, inside of that bag, there is something that is very important, that I consider very important. It is a little book. It's a small book, but read it, because that's the book that God used to change my life. Okay, that's why every time when I have a person that I meet or something, I always try to give that book away so that person can read it, because it is tremendous, because it has to do with Jesus. To look, after more than 2,000 years of the life of Jesus, still people confuse about who he is. And in that little book, it's so clear, so wonderful, that I want you to read it. All right? So let's look at some sayings on friendship, because usually the sayings are like proverbs. Okay? Because that's what Proverbs is. Wise sayings that according to God's mind, according to God's truth. Like one said, a good friend, a good coat. Okay? Why? Because when we have a good friend, we have to give him help and shelter when he needs it. Okay? That's the way that you're going to find out if you are a real friend, or if a person is a real friend, when you are in need. Okay? A good friend, a good in need, and then you are right away helped, protected by that person. He said, this person is a real friend. Friend in adversity, true friend. Okay? So you're gonna know. And usually it happens. It's been said. You're gonna find out who are your real friends when you are stranded in the desert in the middle of the night. Okay? Who are you gonna call if you don't have AAA? Right away you start thinking, and if you don't have nobody to call, it's because you don't have real friends. You don't have real friends. But if you say, oh, well, I can call this and I can call this first, it's because you can count with them, because they are real friends. They are real friends. You can call them and they're up in the middle of the night even though they have to work early morning and they're going to go and help you. They're going to bring what happened. Oh, my tire or this or my car is broken. Okay, and don't worry, I'll. It's automatically. Just think about those places where you go in and your telephone right away is connected to their Wi-Fi. It's probably because a good friend lives there. Somebody that you know. For example, everyone hears what you say. Okay, when you're in trouble, okay, you're in trouble, everyone hears what you say. Okay, and then friends listen what you say. Okay, but best friends listen to what you don't say. They know, oh, okay, no, he's not asking for this, but I know he has this need also. Best friends are going to go a step ahead than just a friend. Okay? And everyone just hears. Okay? So, you see, the amazing thing that we find in the Bible is that God can be our friend. That God can be our friend. And you see, sometimes it's more difficult among us humans to really become friends. Because why? Because of our selfishness, because of different manifestations of our fallenness, of our sinfulness. We manifest it in different ways, and it makes it more difficult for us to truly become friends. But with God, God makes it easier. Because just think about the difference. Among us, we're trying to make friends between two imperfect. Us, sinners, God trying to be a friend of us. Okay? And like I was telling you, in the Old Testament, Isaiah 41:8 says, the Lord says, people of Israel, you are my servants. Jacob, I have chosen you. You are the children of my friend Abraham. You see the different relationships here? They were servants, but Abraham is my friend. Abraham is my friend. So that speaking about a closer relationship than just being a servant, but you are my friend. Okay? And that's why even in the New Testament it's called in James, half brother of Jesus, writing this epistle, he wrote, this shows the full meaning of the scriptures that says, Abraham believed God, and God accepted Abraham's faith, and that faith made him right with God, and Abraham was called God's friend. You see? So there is a way that we can become friends of God. Okay? And right here we have a road map that is clearly teaching us and telling us the steps to take, like Abraham, to become a friend of God. To become a friend of God. Because if having a good friend, a human good friend, is a blessing from God, can you imagine having God as your best friend? And I don't want you to think that, that sounds very, very good, beautiful. But it's this idea is just for here, for the church. But the reality outside, I don't think it's possible to really have that kind of friendship with God. But it's here. The Bible doesn't lie to us. Okay? It is a reality. that we can experience that kind of relationship with God, that God considers us my friend. Wouldn't you like to hear that? And instead of Abraham, put your name there. Sergio, that's my name. And Sergio was called God's friend. Oh, that sounds very good. Now put your name there and say it in your mind. And Pancho was called God's friend. And Maria was called God's friend. Put your name, it sounds very good. But what I want you to keep in mind that not only sounds good, but I want you to have the faith that it can be real. Okay? It can be real. Not just sound good or great, but it can be real. Because it can be real. Okay? And that's what we want to know. And you see, the steps, we are going to expand the information, the explanation on the steps to take next week. Because if you notice in your outline, the readings, the Bible readings for, you have a section in your outline for Bible readings there in the back. Do you see that? What book and what chapter are you going to be reading from? From the Romans chapter 4. And you're going to read the whole chapter 4. Why? Because the whole chapter 4 deals with Abraham, why Abraham became a friend of God. Okay? So next week we're going to continue considering that so we can see it in depth. Right now I'm just going to show you like an introduction of how he became friend of God. But there are more arguments in chapter 4. So that's why I always give you the passages in ahead of time so that during the week you can meditate and come ready to learn more and to allow God to speak to you in a clearer way because you throughout the week meditated on the subject that I'm going to be touching next week. So go through it, okay? For each day, it's just you have 5 passages for each day, and each day you read it, meditate on it, and pray about it. So here, notice here it says, God accepted Abraham's faith, and that faith made him right with God, okay? Something that is important. That, see, in order to be a friend, you got to have the right relationship, right? So the same way with God, in order for us to be a friend of God, to have that kind of relationship of friend, we have to be in right relationship. Because the Bible tells us that we are not in right relationship with God. That's the meaning of being a sinner. A sinner means that we are separated from a relationship with God. Because God is holy and he cannot have any communion, he cannot have any friendship, he cannot have any intimacy with sin. Because he is perfectly holy. So we are separated, and because we are sinners, even us, we don't want nothing to do with God. We are in reality running away from God. Oh yeah, we can be open to religion and to be religious, but that doesn't mean that we have a personal relationship with God and that he's my friend and that we have this close relationship. No, that was the problem with all the spiritual leaders in the time of Jesus. When Jesus came, they were the ones that wanted to kill Jesus. Why? Because he showed the people the difference between him, that he was authentic, he was real in his relationship with the Father, with God, and them, the religious people, that all they had was religion, but not a relationship with God. That's why even Jesus told them, look, your real father is the devil, because you don't have a relationship with my Father, you don't have a relationship with God. You just have religion, you're experts in religion, but you don't have a relationship. So that's the very first thing that has to be in place if we want to be a friend of God, to be in right relationship with God. Right relationship with God. And that is only through faith. Okay? Only through faith. And that's what we're going to be looking in detail in chapter 4 of Romans. Okay? About exactly this point. That is through faith. Okay? Because what is the most common way that people believe that you can be right with God? It's, to have religion, just to be religious. Like people tell me, hey, I have my own religion, I have my own church, so I don't want to, don't even tell me about it. No, I don't want to talk about religion. I want to talk about having a personal relationship with the living God, that Jesus that resurrected. Why we're here on Sundays? Why do we come on Sundays? Because it was on a Sunday when he resurrected, when he proved that he was the Savior, that he defeated sin, defeated death, and defeated Satan and all his demons, defeated the system, the world that was against him. So that's why we come together on a Sunday. Okay? So he's alive, so we can have a real personal relationship with him. It's not just about having religion. Okay? So that's chapter 4 deals with that. Okay, because remember the Apostle Paul, the one that is writing chapter 4 of Romans, he used to be a Pharisee. He used to be an expert on religion. He was a religious person. He was so religious, his religious zeal was so strong that he wanted to kill all Christians. When the church was just starting, he wanted to wipe it out. And he had authority, and he began his work of wiping out Christianity when Jesus appeared to him, and he was converted. Okay? And he was converted. So here we see a roadmap that is telling us Abraham believed God, and God accepted Abraham's faith. Okay? Believed God. And that faith made him right with God. And Abraham was called God's friend. So he believed God. That's the very first thing that we have to understand, that he believed God. So now we're going to look at examples of the way that he believed. Okay? The challenges. Because we all going to have challenges. If we're going to believe God, or if I'm going to believe myself, other people, the world, the system. What is it that I'm going to believe whenever I find myself in a situation? Okay, in Hebrews 11, that's also the chapter where the writer presents the people of faith. He gives examples. Look, this person was a person of faith because of this, and this other person was a person of faith because of this and this, and they go in chronology, historical chronology, presenting each person that showed saving faith. Okay, saving faith. And Abraham is one of those examples of saving faith, that his faith made him in right relationship with God. So in Hebrews 11, verse 8, it says, by faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went where he was going. Wow. Can you imagine? Because you see, Abraham lived in Ur of the Chaldeans. Okay? And that is Ur of the Chaldeans. It's behind Iran. Okay? Behind Iran. So he lived over there, and according to the Bible, he was lived very comfortable because he was a rich man. Okay? And Ur of the Chaldeans was the most rich and the most famous city in the known world in those days. Okay? It's like today, probably living like in New York or some other place that you consider that is very famous in the world and rich people live there, and he lived there. And let's think, so that we can understand it, that because he was rich, he lived in a country club, gated community. He had all the amenities. He was a rich person, okay? So he was comfortable. But suddenly one day God comes, talks to him, talks to him and tells him, Abraham, I have chosen you to begin a new nation. You're going to be the father of a new nation, and that is Israel. Okay? But first, I want you to go to the land that I'm going to give in the future to your offspring. So I'm going to give him as the land of promise, the Holy Land, what we call today. I want you to go there. But can you give me an address? I don't want to know. You just go out and I will show you as you start your journey. I will guide you. I will tell you where that place is. Do you think it's easy to do that once you're living in that country club, very comfortable, to not even know where you're heading? All you know is that, all I know is I just got to go north, but I don't know where. I don't know exactly how many days it's going to take us or what. God is not giving me details. And sometimes God, that's the way he works, testing us to see if we have the faith, the real faith, because real faith obeys. Notice, by faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went. Now, can you imagine Abraham tell his wife, honey, we're moving. Where are we moving? Are we moving to another beautiful place? What other beautiful place are we moving? Are we moving to Miami? Are we moving to, I don't know, honey. I don't know. God appeared to me and he just told me to take that direction. So, what? Are we going to leave all our comfort and everything, our friends, everything, just because you say that God spoke to you and he told you to go? Where? So you see the challenge? That was a great challenge. It was not easy. So many things, and say, okay, so now I'm going to have to leave my home. Why? Because he had a home. He had a home. He had a building and buildings where he was living. But the Bible says that he obeyed, and he took all his servants, all his belongings, he took them all, and he started walking, going. And look, the next verse says, by faith, once again, he keeps emphasizing that everything that Abraham did, it was by faith. That means believing God, obeying God. By faith, he made his home in the promised land. Like a stranger in a foreign country, he lived in tents. Can you imagine the change? Living in a country club and now camping 24/7? Because you know what camping is all about. I don't know how many days you can stand camping. It's not comfortable, right? It's not as comfortable as when you are at home. It's not as comfortable. So, look, the situation. But the Bible tells us that he believed God. Can you imagine a promise like that? Abraham, I'm choosing you. Okay, you're going to become the father of a great nation. But first of all, you're going to have to go and go to the place where it's going to be the place of this nation. Okay, and he just obeyed, and it was even more difficult to obey that, not only because of having to move, okay, Not only because having to move, but look at the other challenge. Okay, verse 12. And so from this one man, Abraham, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand of the seashore. Okay? So he's telling us, why do you think he's telling us? And so from this one man, and he as good as dead. Why do you think he's giving that information, as good as dead? You know why? Because the challenge of believing God was that he was very old, okay? And his wife was very old. And not only that, but she was infertile. They didn't have kids because she was infertile. She couldn't get pregnant. And suddenly, can you imagine Abraham telling her, hey, look what God told me, that we're going to have so many numerous kids that are going to come from us. Don't you think that's a big challenge of faith? And she said, me? Look, I'm more than 80 years old and I've been infertile all my life. And how can you think that now we're going to have children? I said, God told me and he promised me that. So I believe, so I'm obeying, and that's why we're moving and we're just going to trust God. Maybe nowadays, the way we think, very practical, we would say, oh, he was probably crazy by believing that. Oh, it was just faith in God. And that's the challenge that we have. When we read the Bible, that's God's word speaking to you, speaking to me. And the challenge is, am I going to obey God or am I going to keep doing my own thing? That's going to be the challenge. And it's the same challenge. He heard God's voice speaking to him. It's just in a different way. In those days, they didn't have Bible yet. Okay, so God spoke directly. But now, God speaks directly to us, but through means. Okay, the scriptures. The scriptures. So he's telling us his will, what he wants. Because Abraham was 91 years old and Sarah was 81 years old when God promised them that they would have a son. He told them, you are going to have a son. And that's Isaac. You're going to have a son. Me at 91 years old and my wife infertile at 81 years old have a son. And you know the story. It happened. The miracle of God. So when we have faith, that kind of faith that I call saving faith, that has the power to get us in right relationship with God, and is the kind of faith that is obedient faith. He believed, and when we have that kind of faith, then it's going to be easy for God to bless us. Most of the time we miss God's blessings because we don't believe in God. We don't obey God. But still, we want God's blessings. And if he doesn't bless us, it's all his fault. Maybe he doesn't even exist. Or maybe he doesn't really love me. Okay, cares for me. Maybe for others, but not for me. So we start blaming God instead of looking at us and say, am I a person with real saving faith? With that kind of faith that Abraham had? That's why, you see, in the scriptures, Abraham is called the father of faith. The father of the faithful. He is the main example of faith. Okay? So, what a challenge. Okay? What a challenge. And then they had another challenge because she got pregnant. Okay? They had a son, Isaac. And Isaac began to grow up. And one day God called Abraham and said, Abraham, I want you to go to this mount and I want you to sacrifice your son, your only son, Isaac. I want you to sacrifice it. Wow, sacrifice it. You know what that means? Kill him. Give it to me in worship, in sacrifice. Give it to me. Okay? I want to see if you love your son more than you love me. Okay? What a challenge. And what do you think Abraham did? Do you think he said, God, you must be mistaken. You already promised me a son, and it was a miracle. And now that I have this son where he's going to begin to multiply, and that way that nation is going to become a reality. Now you want me to get rid of him and kill him? I don't understand that, and especially because you are against human sacrifices, and now you want me to sacrifice my son? I don't understand. Okay, explain it to me, because I don't understand. No, the Bible says that he just obeyed. And that's the challenge for us, that sometimes we're not going to understand all the details, but we have to just obey God. That's faith. Just obey God, even if you don't understand everything. Because I'm sure that in every situation, it is even impossible for us to understand everything, all the details. It's going to be impossible. If God were to explain all the little details, we would get crazy. So we just have to obey God. And ahead of us, when we obey, then things are going to start to get clearer and clearer and clearer. Like right now, us. I'm pretty sure Abraham died and he couldn't see the whole picture. Like now, we can see the whole picture of God's doing through Abraham. Now we can see a nation. Now you can go and visit the Holy Land and all that, and we know that there's a nation, Israel. You know the history, how they've been trying to destroy Israel. Why only Israel? Why they are everybody around them, they're enemies, and they want to destroy them, and they want their land when they have millions and millions and miles of land, but they want that little piece of land. Why? That doesn't make sense. Because they are the chosen people of God, and Satan is against that. So it's going to be difficult, the challenges, because Satan is going to be there, and he's going to come and tell them, no, but doesn't make sense. Don't do this. Don't do it this way. It doesn't make sense. It sounds good in the Bible, but that's just for Sundays, but not for Monday. Okay, you just do what you know is the best day, and we have those challenges. And so Abraham is faced with that challenge. Sacrifice your son. Then it says in verse 17, and it was by faith that Abraham offered his son Isaac as a sacrifice. God made the promises to Abraham, but God tested him, and Abraham was ready to offer his own son as a sacrifice. But look what he was thinking when he was willing to sacrifice his son. Verse 19 says, Abraham believed God could raise the dead. And really it was as if Abraham got Isaac back from death. So Abraham thought, okay, God, I'm going to obey you, but I know you. I know that you're all-powerful God. You're the creator of heaven and earth. You have created everything. So, I know you're going to keep your promise that from Isaac, this whole nation is going to come. He's going to multiply. He's going to get married, multiply. And I know that if I obey you and I sacrifice him and he dies, I know that you can raise him from the dead. You see, even now, after more than 2,000 years that we celebrate the resurrection of Christ, every Easter, there are many people that don't believe in the resurrection of Jesus. They don't believe in the resurrection of Jesus. And Abraham, we're talking about 5,000 years ago, believed in the resurrection, that God can resurrect. a person. What a faith! That's a real challenge. That's faith. So, one obvious lesson to draw from Abraham's life is that if we want to become a friend of God, we need to establish a relationship with God on the basis of faith alone. Okay? Faith alone.